picture this. You're sitting across the table from a hiring manager and you are now ready to discuss your salary. What's going through your head right now? Are you exuding unshakable confidence, or are you second guessing every word that is coming out of your mouth? Today's guest is going to help you feel more confident in your negotiation conversations. Hey ladies, welcome back to another episode of No Woman Left Behind. I'm Rosie Zilinskas, and I am your guide to helping you take bolder steps in your career. I am so grateful that you're here, whether you're driving, doing the dishes, or just enjoying some quiet time. We have an excellent episode lined up for you today. We are kicking 2025 off by diving into the art of negotiation. So specifically, we want you to flip the script on how those high stakes salary talks will go. So we're going to chat about a few things. We're going to talk about why negotiation is really a problem-solving conversation. We're going to go over some powerful phrases that I think is going to make you a better negotiator. And we're going to rewrite that inner dialogue that you have, that inner narrative on walking away knowing that you were able to communicate your professional value. So you're going to leave with some actionable tips after today's episode. So let me go ahead and introduce you to our guest today. Dorothy Mashburn is an interview and salary negotiation coach, and she is on a mission to help women of color and allies in executive roles to confidently negotiate their professional value. This is one of those conversations where you will want to take notes, or you can always check out the blog that will be in the show notes. So click on the episode website and then the blog will show up for you. So with that, let's dive into this game-changing conversation with Dorothy.
Are you ready to accelerate your career? Whether you're just starting out, making your move up the ladder, or ready to take the fast lane, there's one question you need to ask yourself. Where do I stand? Introducing the Promotion Readiness Quiz. In just a few minutes, discover if you're an emerging leader, a progressive pro, or a career trailblazer. Get tailored tips and strategies to help you grow, elevate your skills, and move forward faster. Take the quiz now and step into the next chapter of your career with confidence. Your career breakthrough starts here. Take the Promotion Readiness Quiz now.
Dorothy, thank you so much for being here today. How are you doing?
Hey, Rosie. Great to be here. I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for having me here.
Yeah, great. It's hard to believe we're already in 2025 and we're kicking off the year. I think this is actually a perfect conversation to kick off 2025. You're an interview and salary negotiation coach, and I think women especially struggle so much to really showcase their value. There's amazing women all over the world, but I think the lack of confidence and how to actually position yourself so that someone can actually see the value on what you bring to the organization or the job, the role, whatever it is. And so I want to kind of kick off the conversation with, let's just kind of define what we're going to be talking about first. So when we talk about negotiating, what does negotiating mean to you, Dorothy?
Yeah, great question. So negotiating to me is a problem-solving conversation that you have with your future employer, and we're talking about salary negotiation. Of course, negotiation can take many forms. But it's a problem-solving conversation at its very basic, fundamental sets. Now, there is a lot of, Hollywood action sequences and, where they're like being extremely glib and sharp and, going back and forth and it's one-upping one another. It's none of that. It's really, you have a basket of goods and services that you're bringing to your employer, and the employer wants you. So how do you now come to a middle ground on what they want to pay for you and what you're going to be happy with? That's really it. And if you think of it that way, that fear goes away and you feel more confident.
I love that. And I always tell my clients and my listeners that the more preparation you do, that's how you gain more confidence about yourself because you start understanding who you are and, what your strengths are and how you actually can talk about your strengths so that you can tell someone, "Hey, I can help you meet your goals." And I think when when hiring managers hear, well, wait, you want to help me meet my goals instead of what's in it for you only, I think that makes a big difference. So I like that you say the conversation is where kind of like the magic happens. So,
It's really true. Yeah.
so when you are starting to work with some of your clients and you do interview and negotiation, where do you start? What are like the basics that women need to know and understand about the negotiation process?
Yeah, it's one thing I will say is like this is fresh in my mind because I'm just working with this client, and she came to me on the 11th hour and said, "And hey, I have a job offer, and now can you help me negotiate?" I can absolutely help you negotiate, but what you need to remember is negotiation happens at first contact, right? If you think about it, like everything you say to your future employer, whether it's the recruiter or whether it's your employer, like your hiring manager, you need to think about everything you say needs to be towards maximizing your compensation. It's really not about getting the job. It is that, of course, but it's everything I'm going to say from this point forward is about how do I maximize my compensation package. And I hear a lot of women say, I'm not in it for the money, or I'm the service or the work itself is the driver. Absolutely. You don't want to work somewhere where it's soul crushing. So that's your table stakes. So don't go in thinking that, I'm not in it for the money. Guys don't do that. Guys want to maximize because they want to be paid for the value that they bring, right? You're not going to work for free. So that's kind of like your mindset piece, right? And also the where do you start your negotiation? The second piece is try to delay providing a number as long as you can, because you don't know, and we know, right? We've been in corporate long enough where job descriptions don't actually capture all the work that you're going to be doing. So it's gonna sound, oh, this is very basic. I can do this, and they're going to pay me 300,000. Hey, great! But then you get into the role, and you're not traveling every week. You're managing people that you can't performance manage out, but yet you have to work with them. There's all kinds of nuances when you get into a role that you didn't account for. So the best thing for you is to say, let me understand this role a little bit better. Then I can give you an educated answer on what I expect for the compensation.
I like that. I think a lot of times when you are in those conversations and employers to ask you kind of right off the bat, how much do you want to make? I think they kind of put you on the spot. And I mean, I've been in conversations like that where, I say exactly, you know what, I don't really know enough about the role. I really need to understand it a little bit better. And then they come back with a second question. Well, but if you were to have your ideal salary, what would it be? So what would you say in that particular situation, Dorothy? Because like you said, try to delay, like if you say the number first is like you lose kind of mentality. So what would you say if someone is in that same situation? Because a lot of times employers just really want to cut to the chase. They want to save time. And of course it helps, those people that are seeking for jobs right now because they don't want to apply for a job if it's $100,000 less than what they need to live, that kind of thing. So what would you say in that situation when you're trying to not say the number, but they're insisting on you saying a number?
Yeah. That's where, to your earlier point, preparation is important, right? So you at least need to have what I call a three-part number. It's your want, and then your wish, and then your walk away, or your desired, or so there are different ways of categorizing them. But your desired salary is your, say you're making 150,000 today, and any time you usually say, if I'm going to shift and learn about something new, I want at least a 20% increase, right? So that's your desired. Then your dream is like your ideal, like if everything went my way, so maybe that's 220. And then your deal breaker, your deal breaker number will be something that is maybe exactly 150 or below 150, right? So you triage that range before you have that conversation. And the way to do it is, of course, check your websites and work with a salary negotiation expert who can benchmark your salary for you. And so you have that prepared, keep it in your back pocket. And then your employer will say, like, I really need it, like you asked, right? Like if you insist. So then what you do is provide a range. The range is going to be between your desired and your dream. So say 180 to 220, and you leave yourself some wriggle room there, right? Oh. And then people usually ask, well, can you then go back? You can absolutely go back if during the negotiation process you find out that, oh, this really needs to be a 280, right? And you then have the justification later through the conversation that, hey, when I provided you my range, this was my understanding of the job description. However, through the interviews, I found out X, Y, Z, and so now my requirement is 280 or 290.
Got it. I like that. Now, we talked a little bit when we first had our call about determining your market value, determining your professional value. Some people call it determining your worth. So what are the steps that we need to take in order to get to that market value or that professional value, whatever that dream salary that you want? When I'm thinking about a compensation package, it's not just what my salary is, but it's like, benefits and vacation or, paid time off, all those things. But what are the steps to actually get to determining your professional value?
Imagine a space where your career aspirations are supported by a community that truly understands your journey. A space designed for women like you, ready to elevate their careers. Our monthly membership includes everything from expert training and monthly workshops to a custom career roadmap. Join a supportive community where group coaching and networking turn your professional goals into achievable milestones. Celebrate your wins with a network of women who are as invested in your success as you are. Unlock the leader within.
So I recommend 3 data points, right? One, you simply go to the known sites like PayScale or salary calculators, any generic sites. Then you go to specific sites. I'll give you 3: levelsfyi.com, Team Blind, and then h1data.info. So what these are specific. So you will know what a senior staff engineer in Apple makes because they've asked people to provide their salary information, and they've done a regression analysis to find like that optimal median compensation package. So that's going to have your base salary, your long-term incentives, all of the things that make up a comp package. So that's second. And then your third is absolutely important, is go to your alumni groups to reach out and say, hey, what is the range, like, since you graduated, that you're seeing in your industry, in your market, in your geography. And so those 3 things will determine you triangulate to come up with that range of desired and dream salary number. And then, of course, there are more specific paid sites, which generally individuals don't have access to because they're like more expensive, like ERI, ECRI. Those provide salary benchmarking information. So then you can always add that as a 4th data point to really have good factual information.
Got it. And for you, Dorothy, as a negotiation coach, if someone comes to you and says, okay, help me determine, my professional value or market value, are those the same steps that you take then with them to determine their market value?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And then, every situation is so personalized that we've got to look at, like, for example, I'm working with a client today, this week, who's working in a big tech company. And, they have an offer of $600,000 in equity for her. However, the work that she's going to be doing is very specific, and there's not a lot of people who are going to be available. So her demand is super high. So 600,000 is the median for an engineer in equity in this company. However, because she's so niche, we do have the ability to add another 200,000 in requests for equity for her. So again, it's very dependent on what skills you bring and how do you position that so that you can then ask for that extra, whatever that number is for you.
Right. And then I will make sure that those 3 sites that you mentioned on are linked into the show notes as well. Now, what are some other steps as far as using the right phrases? I call it like crafting your script, and it goes back to preparation, right? Because if you don't have the right phrases when you're positioning your value, that's where you might have the skills, but if you're not able to articulate that you have those skills, that's where things can fall flat or go wrong. So tell me a little bit about how you come up with the right phraseology and how you work with your clients to determine those important phrases.
Yeah. I think it goes back to a little bit about preparation, and preparation doesn't sound sexy, but it is so important, right?
Yes.
So for preparation piece, you want to understand what problem is this hiring manager trying to solve, because the phrases then will be what they're trying to solve. Because during the conversation, let's just say example, right? This is actually a real life example. So some hiring manager tells you that they're late on a project. This is a program manager. They're late on a project and they're desperate to get somebody in the role so that the project is back on timeline. Now you've discovered 2 or 3 things here. He's desperate, right? And then he's also wanting somebody to hit the ground running, and also somebody he doesn't have time to have a long learning curve on. So when you know that, when you understand that, you can then phrase saying things like, in my past job, I came into a hot mess, right? And of course, you'll be professional. I came into a hot mess and nobody was there to train me. So I learned my ropes really quickly and I was able to deliver on time and under budget. So that's kind of a tweak, which will be very personalized. And immediately you're going to hear that hiring manager perk their ears like, oh, this is the same situation, right? So the before the phrase, you've got to hear. So talk less, let them talk more. And of course, there's data even that in an interview, the person who talks most feels like the interview went well. So if they talk more, it's twofold benefit for you. 1, you learn more about them, and 2, they feel the interview went really well. So let them talk. The second phrase is when you are in the nitty-gritty of the negotiation, they may say, I can only go to 190. Then you start asking, like, help me understand what your constraints are. That's a great phrase to show curiosity and also to understand their problems, right? And then believe them, right? If they say budget is constrained, don't have a doubt. Like I was working with a client, like, do they really mean that? It's like you have to believe what people say, right? Because you don't know anything else. So you believe that, yeah, budget is constrained. Then you start asking, the second phrase is, help me understand where you do have flexibility. And then I'll try to work with you so that we can both come together and have a solid plan that works for both of us. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. And I like those 2 phrases, help me understand the constraints and then help me understand where you have flexibility. I think those are really key phrases because it opens up the door on the conversation. I think it's so interesting too that the person that actually talks the most is the one that thinks that the interview went really well. And so when I'm thinking of the interviews that I've had, a lot of times I was kind of just letting the hiring manager kind of dictate the cadence of the conversation. But I think nowadays things are a little bit more relaxed. So I wouldn't have any qualms about asking questions during the interview. Is that something that you would agree with?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Have an organic conversation, and if everything goes well, this is a person you're going to be working with. It's a relationship you're building. So treat it like that versus it being extremely formal and kind of very rigid. Be organic. It's the best way to even suss out, right, if this is the right environment for you. And if you're somebody who likes to be more relaxed, then and they're not, then you know that this is probably not a right fit. You may still take the job depending on what you need to do, but you know what you're getting into, eyes wide open.
Got it. Are there any other powerful phrases that you use outside of that negotiation conversation, Dorothy, that could really help someone understand how to talk about their strengths? Like, are there any other key phrases that are your go-to phrases?
Let me think. I think the curiosity mindset, and however you want to articulate, in your own words, people use there are like the 7 phrases, like you've got to do better than this, and, deal or no deal. I mean, there's a lot of things. I try to avoid, I ask people to avoid like these catchphrases, because every negotiation is nuanced to that individual, and you want to be able to be adaptable and flexible. So similar to what you just said, right? If do you kind of let the relation, like the person sitting next to you, dictate how the conversation goes? I think that's the best way to let the conversation unfold and then adapt your style to that.
Yeah. And one of the things that I always tell people is have your closing phrase that you're going to say, because I think leaving with a really good, powerful phrase, like, for example, I really look forward to working with you, or I really look forward to hearing from you. Do you have any kind of closing phrase like that?
Yeah. So that's interesting. So we call it in technical parlance, we call it an anchor, a visual or a verbal anchor. So that's exactly that. So it's basically your signature thing that you're going to say throughout, right? So maybe, and this is kind of corny, but maybe you say, I'm the GPS of the organization. I help people find their true north, right? Like say you said that in the beginning. Close with that, right? Like not the exact phrase, but you'll say, I am like fully committed to delivering the true north in this business when I joined the team. Do show excitement, like exactly what you said. I look forward to hearing back from you, or I'm excited about coming to add value to you. So always make it about them, versus saying, it's I'm looking forward to getting this job, right? You wouldn't say
Right.
that. You would come and say, I'm looking forward to growing your revenue, or I'm looking forward to cutting costs. So close with that, but do use that signature phrase. What feels natural to you throughout the interview.
Right. Now, I know you have some golden nuggets, in your interviews that you generally talk to your clients about. What are some of the golden nuggets that you use during the interview process?
Yeah. So what a golden nugget is, those hidden pieces of information within a negotiation that you're unearthing, you're mining for it. So that this is why letting them talk more helps, because you're trying to unearth these golden nuggets. So this is not my phrase. It's from Chris Voss, who's the FBI investigator, FBI negotiator, and now has his own consulting company. But he talks about, you're looking for those phrases. One example I gave you, we are under constrained budget. The program is behind time, like and over budget. So that's a golden nugget. You have leverage, because they don't have time to look for a bunch of people now, right? So you can put yourself in that high power negotiation seat. The other things that you can get is ask for what's keeping you up at night, and then let them talk, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then that will be the biggest problem that will come to the thing they say is the biggest problem. Then you say, I solved this exact problem in X, Y, and Z company. And that gives you leverage. So this is how you unearth those golden nuggets. In a commercial negotiation, what I will usually ask for is, hey, you want to do a partnership deal with you? What's going on with your career, right? And of course, many conversations into is when you ask. And let's just say they say, I want to look good in front of my VP of sales. Like, then I know that this individual is motivated to close the deal. And so then I know I have more leverage and more power. So that's where you move from the professional to the personal, to the professional, to the personal, to get those typical golden nuggets to get more power towards your side.
So what I'm hearing is that we really need to employ our active listening. But that's really hard, Dorothy, because when you're in an interview and you haven't met these people before, you're thinking about, oh my gosh, what am I saying? How am I doing? The brain is so preoccupied by us. So what is maybe a way that you can shift that from thinking just about me to thinking about the other person and employing that active listening? What do you usually recommend for your clients for that?
Yeah, one of the preparation pieces that I do with my clients is understanding your fears, right? Some people there are like 2 or 3 fears that most people have, like fear of success, fear of failure, or fear of judgment, right? So those are kind of typically, and so for each individual, it's a little bit different. For me, it's fear of success, right? And so some people it's fear of judgment. So knowing and telling yourself that I do have this, naming the emotion, I'm feeling fear right now. I need to have a check-in with myself while you're in the interview really helps. So first you've got to identify what is the fear that mostly comes up for you. And then when you are keeping an active check on yourself during the interview, saying, hey, how am I doing? Am I still being confident? Am I cool under pressure? If not, which fear or what is coming up for me, and naming it in your mind then allows you to slow yourself down.
That almost sounds to me a little bit like being aware of emotional intelligence, understanding your emotions and understanding kind of like you were saying with your fears. I worked with another woman, her name is Joy Selden, and she talks about being very present and even like going to the bathroom beforehand and kind of just taking 5 minutes, even if you're in the bathroom stall, and just kind of like breathing through those emotions and identifying those fears. That's all part of emotional intelligence. And I think once you do that, you go into the interview a little bit calmer, where you can pay attention to the other person and less attention on the nervousness that you're feeling, right? Because that anxiety and nervousness can be paralyzing sometimes.
Yeah, one of my sales colleague friends gave me this tip, exactly that. She goes into the bathroom before her meeting, and then she says, she's worried about closing and quota and all the things that salespeople have to worry about. She says, I create a mental parking spot, literally where my car is parked, and I put all of that there. And say, for now, it's sitting here. When I come back, I will get back and put it back in my head. But that's just kind of a mental exercise she does before every meeting, so that she's not sounding desperate when she's trying to sell. And so that same thing, I try to apply the same thing when I'm going into a negotiation or a job interview. I haven't interviewed in a while, but that's what I teach my clients as well. This is what you need to be, something that works for you, kind of like that parking space.
Got it. So the active listening is what helps you identify those golden nuggets, and then you can bring those back through.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Remember to talk less. That will help. And then remember to check in with yourself to see how your emotional state is.
Got it. Now, you mentioned kind of towards the start of our conversation, the difference between men and women. So I'm assuming you coach both men and women?
Yes.
Okay. And so I'm always so curious, and to me it's fascinating how men behave one way and women behave another way. But when it comes to negotiation and when it comes to really showing your worth and your value, I'm sure you've seen that that meme of a cartoon of a male and a female, and the male is looking at himself in the mirror, and he's bald and he's got a pot belly, and he's like, pretty good, man. And then the woman is all skinny and pretty, her hair's made, and she's like, oh my God, I look terrible. So it's that mindset of society, like we are so programmed to have to do our hair and our makeup and be skinny and all those perfect things, whereas guys are just like, whatever, generally, from that meme. So when it comes to negotiation, what is your experience when you work with women versus working with men?
Yeah. Oh, I could spend days on this topic, right? This is one of my favorite topics. First of all, men don't hesitate to invest in themselves. So it's interesting, Rosie, if I made my business primarily focused, I primarily work with women and women of color, but not that the doors are closed for anybody who needs help. If I focused on men, I would be a millionaire. Honestly, it's like they don't hesitate to invest. So I think it starts there where women have so many competing things in our brains that have been put in our heads, where think about others, care for others, taking care of yourself is selfish, all of this social programming, right? That we have to deal with. Similar to the meme, right? Like, I'm beautiful, except I have this tiny little wrinkle here and I'm old or whatever, right? So that is very prevalent. From first contact, I see that between men and women, right? So, and then when you're asking, women generally think that this is not everybody, generally think that they are doing you a favor by giving you a job. Men usually come at the negotiation thinking that I'm awesome. They're lucky to have me, right? Some version of that.
Yeah.
So when you have that change, it automatically puts you in in a position of power. When you think of yourself as, I'm awesome, they're lucky to have me. And if they don't get me, then it's their loss. Versus, oh my God, I really need this job and I can do anything and I'll learn from them. And I'm going to, like that humility is good, but not good for your self-confidence. So those are kind of like the major glaring. Now, there is studies that have changed that women are asking for more. Before, women were not asking for more. So like that famous study by Linda Babcock, women weren't asking. Now there's a recent study by Stanford where women are asking for more, but are getting denied more. So there are some unconscious biases that women are now facing where the norm has been established that women don't ask, men ask. So now you're going against that norm by asking. So you're being denied more. So, so there is some systemic problems that women face for sure, right? We know this. But for the most part, it's the confidence and the mindset of thinking that the authority figure knows best. And I'm going to be in this kind of a subservient position to that authority figure and take what they give you. So that's kind of, generally speaking, the difference in the mindsets.
God, and I hate that so much because I grew up being a rule follower. I'm still a rule follower for the most, because I always say, rules were made for a reason, to protect us, et cetera, et cetera. But that mindset is so hard to get to do away with, because you're right. Whenever we see an authority as we're growing up, you're like, oh, they know best. And then when you are an adult and you're trying to negotiate, and that word subservient, which I hate that word, but you do feel that subservient role where, well, they're the executive, they're the hiring manager, they're whoever. And so do you have any recommendations when your clients are feeling that, like, oh, the authority person knows best? Like, what can we do to dissipate that mindset?
Yeah, one of the things that helped one client was going to ask for a pay raise. And, she was like terrified that they would say no, right? Or it would make the relationship awkward. So one of the exercises that we did was write down all the things you're great at, right? So it sounds kind of simple and kind of trite, but you use a friend or a person of expertise. And so we said, okay, so you grew up market in Singapore. Did you have any help? No. Did you have anybody? Has that been done before in your company? No. So you trailblazed in a brand new market, brand new language, brand new culture, and you grew revenue by 20%. So when I said that, she was like, oh, yeah, I did that, So writing down all the things you have done and how accomplished you are will help you to a certain degree. So don't take that lightly. Do take the time to do it. And then if you feel stuck, get a friend to tell you what are you awesome at. And then second, you kind of alluded to this. You're no longer a child. Your authority figures don't have the same power over you anymore. So kind of thinking like changing, rewiring that, and maybe even having a sticky on your desk saying like, I am awesome, or, I'm charismatic and influential, whatever that affirmation is, and looking at it every day. I promise you it helps.
I think that's such a huge golden nugget that you just provided us, because you do have to position yourself as the expert, the expert of whatever it is that you do. You are the expert, your stuff, and now you have to position yourself so that you're not in that inferior role as you're having the conversation. And once you become aware of that, then you can use those power phrases to try to, showcase your value and have those discussions with the hiring manager. So, but I think that's so important to understand those gender differences in negotiating. And I had one of my friends, she's a coach, and she's like, it's so funny because women will call me to cancel or to reschedule an appointment. And they're like, oh, I'm so sorry, I can't meet today. I have to take my son to the doctor because he had a fever and I have to do blah, blah, blah. And they give me their life story. Whereas men will call and say, can't meet today. See you next time. Bye. And you're like, wait, what? And it's so incredible how we feel like we have to justify our actions all the time, justify them. And obviously in a performance review, you have to justify your value with the different projects and accomplishments you had. But we also have to stop apologizing all the time for no reason. When I was an executive, women would say, I'm sorry, can I ask you a question? I'm like, don't say sorry, just ask the question.
Yeah.
Like those gender differences. Is there any other thing that kind of pops up, at you when it comes to dealing with men and women in that negotiation realm?
The apology is big. One other piece of information that helps and is supported by research is taking up space. So, like it may be comfortable, like when you're in your heels and all of that, just like sit like this, but it automatically, like those verbal, the body language cues are huge. And, people who study body language, to me, are doing amazing work. Because that's kind of like our, lizard brain tuning into all of the cues. So take up space in your interview or your negotiation. Like don't, be conscious about that. Men take up space, and like even if you look at like political debates, right? Like if you look at the body language of who was it? Hillary versus Trump. Like Trump, if you see him on the podium, he's like this, and Hillary's like this. So regardless of where you fall on the, on your political views, but he took up space, so he looked powerful. So the same thing applies for you when you're doing your interview. Like look at me, like even I'm it's instinctual to be like this, but really it should be like this.
Got it. Very nice. All right. Well, I'd like to shift the conversation a little bit to your story, Dorothy. Tell us a little bit about how you became an interview and salary negotiation coach, because you're very specific, very niche. So tell me about your career and where you kind of figured out that, hey, I really need to help people in this particular niche.
Yeah. I am an immigrant to the United States. I came to the US when I was 18, just got on a plane and came here. My family is all back in India. And it was really hard, Rosie. I didn't know any of the culture. I didn't know the hidden language of corporate America, no social networking support or structure. And I knew that I was ambitious enough and I wanted to do big things because I've sacrificed so much. And it was like a lonely, frustrating journey with lots of trial and error. And, I'll save the tears for another day. But then I realized, I figured it out, but it was through lots of bruises and skin scrapes and negative feedback, like you shouldn't have said this, and then I corrected. Then an opposite feedback came, like you should have said this, and then I got to the other side, then another feedback. So a few things I realized was people who give you feedback are not always qualified to give you feedback. And this is something I learned over many, many trials and errors. And then I realized that other women, and particularly women who are not, like, say, first generation in corporate America, or their first generation in college from their families, or they're immigrants, they don't have the rule book for these unwritten rules of engagement. Men, either they learn it in the playground, or they have their networking, or their, whatever they teach each other. I don't know, but they know it. So I was ad hoc over the years, bringing women under my wing to say, hey, do this, work for me. And they were so thankful and grateful, right? And then I started doing a lot of commercial negotiations, about 600 now, globally. And so I was like, how do I connect these two passions where I'm helping people and also using my skills in a way that impacts people positively? And of course, as you said, there is a difference between how women approach negotiation and men. There's a fear about negotiation. And I was like, this is perfect. This is my mission. And then I see the gender pay gap. It's still, women are still getting 80 cents to the dollar for what men make. So it's like, this is my sweet spot. And even if I don't make any money doing this business, I'm going to be helping people. And this is it for me.
Yeah, I love that. I love that so much. I just recently started watching a new series. It's called Landman. It's with Billy Bob Thornton, and he's an operations manager for an oil company. But his job is like on the field, like where all the oil rigs are and the drills and all that stuff. And they brought in this young female lawyer, and she was a really good negotiator, but then she became a total representative of the company and not the people. So I was like, great scene to kind of demo how a young woman could come in and be a strong negotiator, but she went way the other way, to like where she was screwing people. I was like, oh, well, that doesn't work.
She became the villain. She became the villain. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, well, Dorothy, you've given us a ton of amazing tips on negotiating and interviewing. Is there maybe like one specific item or tip that you want to leave the listeners with that they can implement pretty much right away?
Yeah, I will ask you to today, after you listen to this, go write down 10 things that you're amazing at. It can be you're a great mom because you did this. It can be you're a great spouse. It can be work related, whatever it is. Write down 10 things and then stick it on a sticky note in front of your laptop, or where you brush your teeth, wherever you will see it. Just do that for today, and I promise you, it does make a difference. It has made a difference for me in my confidence, and it will for you.
Yeah, and I love that tip because one of my coaches had me do that very thing for all of my business, like write down all of the accomplishments that you've had in 2024. And I was like, all right, whatever. And then as I was going through it, I was like, oh my gosh, like you always think like, well, I didn't really get anything done this year. And then when you start going through and really defining all the things, I've been named like one of the top 9 female coaches in like Women's Life Coaching Magazine, and Thinkers 360 has named me as like one of the top 125 podcasts in 2025 to listen to. So those are all like amazing things. But when you like think about it, like, okay, whatever. But then once you actually put it all together, it really does help you not only with your confidence and see how far you've come in 1 year. So I absolutely love that tip. So thank you so much. All right. Any final words on what women can do to negotiate a little bit better, Dorothy?
Yeah, final word. I guess when you were telling me the story about, looking back at your year, there's a Japanese Shinto ritual called misogi, Misogi. And what it is you make a goal for yourself. 2025 is the year I did this, so that you can look back and think about it. So what my challenge for you guys is, if you're making 200,000 today, you say 2025 is a year I went up to 300,000. And then do the thing that you need to do to get to 300,000. If you're making 150, make it 250, whatever, wherever you are. And you'll get there. I promise you.
I'm always excited when I have a conversation with one of my guests and we deliver a lot of actionable value. And that's exactly what Dorothy and I did today. I'm going to highlight 3 takeaways that Dorothy talked about. The very first one is that negotiation is all about problem solving. She says, think of it as a win-win solution with your employer or employer to be rather than a battle. And she also mentioned to listen actively when you're having a conversation with the hiring manager. The second thing is use powerful phrases. A couple of phrases that she provided us is, one of them is, help me understand your constraints around the salary. The second one is, help me understand where you have flexibility. This is to keep the conversation open and to stay very collaborative. And then the third takeaway is that preparation is key. She says, know your numbers from your desired salary to your dream salary. And then always have room for adjustments. One of the things that we talked about is that the person that says the number first kind of loses. So try not to say the salary number that you're looking for. She says instead use a range. So for example, if you're looking for $200,000, you're going to say, well, I would be happy with a range between 180,000 and 220,000. So hopefully they'll land right in the middle, which is your desired or dream salary. Dorothy leaves us with one tip, which is to write down 10 things that you have accomplished that you're happy about, that you're proud about, and they could be work related or personal. And write down the list of your 10 things and stick it somewhere where you can see it every day. You will gain confidence just from seeing those things that you have accomplished. Confidence starts where knowing your professional value is key. All of Dorothy's contact information is going to be on the episode website. And don't forget to take the promotion readiness quiz and also check out the Unlock the Leader Within membership. Again, those links are going to be on the episode website. So you are now left with some tools where you can approach your next negotiation with confidence and clarity, and definitely a solid strategy. So hopefully no more second guessing, just taking action so that you can articulate your professional value. Until next time, remember to be brave, be bold, and take action.